Hello and welcome to The Night Feed. I'm your host, Charlotte, here to bring you some comfort, camaraderie, and conversation and keep you company during, let's face it, one of the toughest parts of being a new parent, The Night Feed. Tonight's unpaid sponsor is mixing up the cinnamon and the chili powder. This morning I thought, you know what? We're going to have pancakes. Let's go for it. Just before the nursery school run, we'll have pancakes. And it's usually cereal or toast in our house, I'll be honest. But I thought, no, we're gonna have pancakes. So there I was, merrily whisking away, music on. Great start to the week. I thought, oh, I'll add a bit of cinnamon. Look at me, basically Martha Stewart. And then before I could stop, I watched a heap of chili powder slam dunk into the mix. Yeah, there's just no going back, is there? Literally no going back. So a new batch it was. And when presented with said second batch pancakes, my eldest told me she preferred porridge. I mean, what in the three bears is that? Who wants porridge over pancakes? Maybe she got a whiff of the chili. I don't know. But speaking of Martha Stewart, I started watching her documentary on Netflix the other night. I don't know if you've seen it. I knew nothing of Martha Stewart really, being from the UK. I knew that she was an American kind of icon, sort of a homemaking kind of gal. And I'm only 20 minutes in, but wow, her story so far is pretty impressive, actually. And basically, she got married, had a baby at 19, and then decided she wanted to be a stockbroker in the 70s when no women worked on Wall Street. Bearing in mind she was a mum too at this point. She worked her way up as the only woman in the office. I don't think they even had female toilets in this place. And was making 250 grand a year back then. And then she decided she didn't like that anymore. So the family all moved to this fixer-upper house with land in Connecticut, where she became a homemaker and started a catering business. And the rest is history, basically. She was then asked to publish cookery books, and she kind of formed this billion-pound career doing homemaking. And she kind of decided to build this brand around being a mum in the home. And it just kind of reminded me of this almost resurgence we're experiencing at the moment with the trad wife movement, because there was a comment on the programme about how before her, homemaking was sort of looked down upon. It was like, oh, well, it's the wife's duty. And it was seen as quite menial while the men went out and worked. Obviously, the woman's going to stay home, clean, look after the children, make delicious food, have dinner parties every Saturday. And it's all just kind of taken for granted, I suppose. And Martha Stewart comes along and shows how actually it's really impressive doing all that, looking after kids, looking after the house. It's actually a full-time job. And I feel like we're in this almost resurgence at the moment when in the 80s, 90s, noughties, our generation, well, particularly for me in this country, I remember thinking it's all about the career. So, get yourself to university, get yourself a good job. And I'm glad we had that. I'm glad we as women were able to choose that path. And now I feel like we're kind of coming back full circle a little bit. And I've seen quite a lot of videos recently of mums on TikTok saying about how they just want to be at home with their babies now, and they've had this kind of realization. And I actually did receive an email from one of you lovely listeners, so I thought now's a pretty good time to share it. So it says, "Hi Charlotte, I loved your discussion on the latest episode about whether it's okay to just want to be a mum. I spoke about that last week, I think it was, when I saw a post on Instagram. If you didn't listen, it was basically discussing if it's okay to just want to be a mum. And she says in this email, it's something I was discussing with my friends not so long ago. And I would say 4 out of the 6 of us would hands down prefer to be at home with the kids full time. 2 of my friends have careers that they absolutely love and find going to work a joy. However, since becoming a mum, I've gone through a mental shift. I now find myself dreading the thought of returning to a job I worked so desperately hard for pre-kids. Back then, it was my life and a career path I'd always wanted. Despite that, I now can't wrap my head around going back. With extortionate childcare costs, I'd be left with £600 a month from my pay packet. And I'm now stuck in such a quandary. Do I really want to work all those hours just to pay childcare? My husband's salary would cover our outgoings, and with some cutbacks, we'd probably just make it work. I'm coming to the point where I would rather much less material things so that I can be at home. Your thoughts on this topic has made me consider this even more, and my husband and I are genuinely considering it. So thank you for being so open about this and helping to make us mums realise that when it comes to our babies, it's okay for our careers to wait. Keep up the podcast, Stephanie in Dorset. Wow. Thank you, Stephanie, for being so open about how you're feeling on this. This is a real key reason why I started the podcast, because I think as mums, sometimes we can think we're going through something on our own, whether that's being up in the night, whether that's our baby waking 8 times a night, whether we want to return to work or not. And sometimes we can get inside our own heads and think it's only us feeling like this, but actually there's so many other women in our shoes no matter what we're going through. And like Stephanie said, her friends, at least 4 out of the 6 would rather be at home. And it just goes to show there are a lot of women at the moment thinking about this and considering it. And I think I've spoke about this word before. There's a term called matrescence, which has come to the forefront because of a journalist who's recently released a book on it. I think her name is Lucy Jones. I'll have to double check that. But matrescence is the term for the physical, psychological, and social changes that women experience when they become mothers. It's kind of like adolescence for teens. I mean, that's already had a term for years, hasn't it? We already know, like, when people become teenagers, they generally go through a whole range of different emotions, and it's kind of now being compared to when we become mums. Like, those first 5 years are so transitional. Relationships change, we change as people. It's almost like someone described it as being born again as a mum. You kind of come through labour and you've gone through so many different changes and so many hormonal shifts that we do need to coin this term, and we do need to have a term for all these psychological shifts that we're having, and physiological shifts. And I think when you talk, Stephanie, particularly about this email, about having this psychological shift from working so hard for this career and it being your life and being so happy to be in the job you do, to then having a baby and being like, I hate that now. I think it has to be explained by some of the hormonal shifts we go through and some of the changes and this love that we have for these babies, that some of us just want to be around them all the time. And I know that isn't the case for everybody. I know some people absolutely love their job. They'll be listening to this now saying, no, I love being a mum, but I also love my career. And there'll be people thinking, well, I'd love to be at home, but financially it's not viable. And then there's people thinking, actually, we could afford it. I'm on the fence with the cost of childcare. Does it make sense? And these are all the thought processes we're going through at the moment. And I do think a big part of it is the hormonal shifts in our minds and how we meet these babies. And some of us are just like, yeah, don't care about my career right now. I can put that on hold. It will be okay. I want to spend this time with my children. And if you are in a position to be able to do that and want to do it, then great. I know not everybody is. I know a lot of people across the world are going through hard times right now financially. So it isn't always possible. But I just think it's interesting, this shift that a lot of women are going through now. And it just got me thinking when I was watching that Martha Stewart documentary about the resurgence of traditional roles in a way and how they are important. And when you think of women who work full time and have children, I think it is such an incredible balancing act. I mean, you've got a full-time job in the day and you've got a full-time job at home. Some babies wake till they're 5+ at night, and you've got that 24/7 plus the job. So I do think it's understandable that a lot of us women are going through these kind of mental shifts about what our priorities are and where our priorities are. And it's okay to want different things. It's okay to change your career. It's okay to decide you don't want that anymore. And we shouldn't be made to feel guilty about it. And the more we talk about it, I think the more airtime the topic gets and the more comfortable people will be when it comes to reassessing what their priorities are now they're mums. So I hope that helps. And thank you, Stephanie, for being so open. I think it's great for the listeners to hear different perspectives and different situations. It always helps. I've had a few emails recently, moving on to a different topic, about recommending good baby books, specifically from 0 to 12 months and then 12 months plus. So with Christmas coming up, if you're thinking of getting some new books, here are a few off the top of my head recommendations. So for 0 to 12, I would say you've probably seen it. It's called That's Not My series, and they're board books. They also have so many different ones, like That's Not My Duck, That's Not My Cat. And they're really simple, really bright. They have flaps and different things that babies can interact with. I think some of them have mirrors and like fuzzy felt. And they're also apparently really good for toddlers when they start to learn to read, preschoolers, that kind of age, because the words are so small and bold. It can really help. So they're not just for babies, those books, which is interesting. And then in general, for this age group, I would say tactile books that they can play with and have, use different textures, colours and different mirrors. Also, black and white cards from, I think, 0 to 3 months are great because young babies have very limited range of colour in their eyesight. I think from birth, their vision is limited to black and white and possibly shades of grey. And then around 4 months, they start to develop colour in their vision. And I remember, particularly with my second baby, she was really perceptive to the black and white cards and books. I noticed an instant difference when I was presenting her with normal books with colours and then the black and white cards. It was like something switched in her and she was so much more engaged and she'd try and reach for them. So it's amazing seeing how they interact. And I actually will give a shout out to a local company. I think they are called Priya and Peanut. And they sell like the black and white flashcards. And they were great. I had a pack of them for the girls. I think I got them for my first. And both of them used them. And yeah, they were great. So highly recommend kind of black and white, really tactile, bright books for that kind of age group. And then for 12 months plus, I'll just give you a few of our current favourites. So The Tiger Who Came to Tea, classic. We're Going on a Bear Hunt, Elmer the Elephant, anything Julie Donaldson, what a queen. I love reading these books. I think a few favourites of ours are The Gruffalo, Snail and the Whale, Stickman, Tabby McTat, Superworm, and the adaptations on the BBC, the little mini films, are absolutely beautiful. Like my two will still watch them now from being really young. And there's something about them that just kind of hooks them in. And they're really relaxing, really lovely to watch. So they're great once you've read the books to put them on. Dear Zoo, that's another good simple book with flaps in. I know my oldest likes to read that to my youngest, and she was like teaching her different animals, and that was really cute. And then I like Dr. Seuss, Green Eggs and Ham. I think that's a classic. I used to read that when I was an au pair. Gosh, back in 2012. Oh my gosh, that's so long ago. I au paired for 2 boys in Vienna, and they loved that book so much, and it always made them laugh. And I don't think mine are at the age yet where they kind of get it, but I try and read it like I used to, and they're just like, meh. So hopefully when they get a bit bigger, they'll like it. But yeah, off the top of my head, they're some of our favourites. Also, if you go onto Amazon, I think you can sort the books by age group and then by reviews or ratings. So you can use that feature as well. But books are perfect for Christmas, aren't they? Perfect little gift. Next, I found a forum post that I thought was quite amusing. And I know that I have quite a few pregnant mums listening. In fact, I received a message from one the other day saying how it's helping kind of prepare her. So anyone that's listening to this to prepare for the night feeds and to prepare for being a first-time parent, you're obviously thinking about labour, and that's what this post's about. Now, I think going into labour, I know personally, number one, I was thinking about the pain. I think that's what we all think about when we're first-time mums, when we've never experienced it. I remember watching videos on YouTube where women would recall how it felt and kind of scaring myself a bit, really. And then I would also worry about the embarrassment, I suppose. Just being seen like that by so many midwives and doctors and nurses, and just being in that whatever position you end up in. I think as a first-time mum, that was on my mind a lot. But this post in this forum was basically saying, tell me the funniest, most embarrassing thing that happened to you during labour. And I thought I'd share a few to put your mind at rest that everybody embarrasses themselves, and the midwives and the nurses and the doctors have seen it all. So just remember that. First one. After I pushed her out and she was on my chest and it was all done and dusted, I proudly proclaimed to my husband, and I didn't even poo myself. To which 2 of the midwives sniggered away to themselves. Apparently I had a lot. Next one is full of dimorphine. I started telling everyone that the bowl of pasta I could see looked so good. There was no bowl of pasta. Then I started telling everyone about how sometimes I found sand in my pockets, but I hadn't been to the beach. Oh, and the throwing up. I drank so much water because the ward was so hot that every time I threw up, it was like a tidal wave. The nurse had to come and mop the floor, change my sheets a few times after I had soaked everything. And the final one, I let out the longest squeaker fart after my epidural. I couldn't feel it, but I could hear it. A nurse was trying to situate a pillow between my numb legs. Her face was all up in my business. All I could do was giggle. So I just thought, if you are pregnant and you are a little bit nervous about either pooing or anything like that happening, I know that is on a lot of people's minds. All I can say is once you're in there, all you're thinking about is that baby. And if your experience is anything like mine, the healthcare professionals are so reassuring and friendly, and they relax you, and you can just tell this to them is, I don't want to say grey noise. It's not grey noise, but that they see it every day, and nothing surprises them. This is what they do. This is their job. And the less you can worry about being embarrassed and the more you can relax, that is my ultimate biggest tip. And I know it's hard to think about this, but going into labour, if you can be as relaxed as possible, it will make everything so much smoother. The more you tense and the more you freak and the more you panic, the harder it's going to be. It's like your body's stress release it's going to make you tense and it's going to make you panic and it's going to make things a bit more painful, I would say. So my best advice is to try and practice hypnobirthing with the breathing. Try and practice your breathing. There's so many free YouTube videos on this that are definitely worth a watch. And yeah, relax as much as you can. It's easier said than done. But remember that you're in amazing hands. They know what they're doing. They've seen it all before. Nothing you do will surprise them. So I hope that helps if you are pregnant and you're a bit nervous. Everything will be great. And like I said, when you're in there, all you're going to be thinking about is that baby. And as soon as you meet them, anything embarrassing that happened during labour will be gone. You won't think about it. You'll just think about this new baby in your arms. Next tonight is Social Media Says. Now, I know this as new mums, this is a long way away for us, but I think it will come around quicker than we think. So Australia is planning a social media ban for under 16s, and if I'm completely honest, I couldn't be happier about changes like this. I think there's been previous attempts by the EU to do this, and they have faced so much backlash from tech firms. They basically say that it'll only delay their exposure, so what's the point kind of thing. But I think there is a huge point to it. I pray that this comes in this country before our kids and our babies get to the age where they want smartphones. I think there was another country that's trying to pass a law where kids under 16 are not allowed smartphones. They are just allowed, they call them dumb phones, which is basically like the Nokias we had when we were kids, where you can text and call, but you can't use social media. And I think it's brilliant. I think when we were back at school, we didn't have social media. We had like MSN, MySpace, but we didn't have smartphones with the capabilities they do today. And I just think it opens them up to all kinds of vulnerabilities. Kids coming in, showing kids things they shouldn't see. I've heard so many stories from mums that have got older kids that are heartbreaking. Bullying, seeing indecent images they shouldn't see at that age. It's just ruining their innocence in my eyes. And I feel so strongly about this because I want my girls to say kids as long as they possibly can. You know, they're only kids for so many years, aren't they, when you think about it? And I feel like this is the kind of thing, if there is a ban, they will be grateful for when they're our age. They'll think, God, I'm so glad I wasn't exposed to that until I was 16 or 18. I'd love to know your thoughts on this because I do think we're going to see a lot more about this. I know there's been a few campaigns in the UK for this, and it is something that local MPs are looking to take to Parliament. So I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Make sure you email me, thenightfeedpodcast@gmail.com. Like I said, I know this is a long way off for us new mums, but there may be listeners with older children. You may have some insight on how your children find using smartphones or how you find it as a parent. It is one of those challenges that I feel is going to be real if we don't have some kind of legislation, because you also don't want your children to be the odd one out, do you? You don't want to be like, no, you're not having what every member of your class has got. I remember for me in year 6, it was a PS1. My mum and dad were adamant we weren't having one because they just didn't like the thought of us being addicted to video games, which, you know what, I can see now I'm a parent. But at the time it was like, I am the only one in my school without a PlayStation. This is so embarrassing. This is terrible. I just need one. And I think eventually we got one. And it was great, don't get me wrong, but I look back and I'm like, actually, yeah, I'm glad I didn't have that from the age of like 5. So it's interesting, isn't it? I think our challenge now is social media. And I'd love to know what you think. I personally hope we get some kind of legislation in that stops under 16s from getting smartphones. I just feel really passionately about it. But yeah, I'm not going to continue ranting, but let me know what your thoughts are. Tonight's self-care suggestion is to take the Christmas pressure off yourself. I was at playgroup and I heard a mum talking about how much she was spending on her young children who are under 5. And I was flabbergasted. And I think Christmas doesn't have to be a stressful, let's overspend experience for everybody. I feel like in this day and age, because of social media, particularly, mums get a bit bogged down by what other people are doing for Christmas, what fancy train rides are going on, and what they're doing this and they're doing that, and they're buying this present and that present. And I just think if you get sucked into that, it's going to make you miserable. Even if you have got thousands of pounds to spend on your children at Christmas, do they need it? Do you need to spend that? Especially when the children are our age, like 5 and under. They don't know. They don't go on social media, remember? So they don't know what other children are getting and what crazy Christmas experiences. I saw this post the other day and it's like, your children just want your time. They just want your time. They want you to spend time with them, have fun with them, and not have parents that are crazy stressed about Christmas, because it doesn't need to be that way. Don't get me wrong. I love buying the girls things and I want their Christmases to be the most magical they can be. I think we all want that as parents. I didn't realise that Christmases would get more magical as you become old when you have kids, because Christmas to me was so magical as a kid. It was the best. And then you grow up and you realise actually it's seeing your kids' faces that's the magical thing. And I just feel for people that get bogged down into debt for Christmas. And I know there's people out there, because I've heard them with my own ears about how stressed they're getting for Christmas. And oh my God, have you started shopping yet? And I've got so many things to buy. I'm really stressed. I don't know how I'm going to afford it. These are the kind of conversations I'm overhearing. And this is just my message to you, to take that pressure off. Especially young kids. I know teenagers can be a bit more demanding with wanting things like Xboxes and designer things and all kinds. But when you've got babies, I think just enjoy the magic. Enjoy the magic with them. And also, if you are struggling out there, remember that Facebook Marketplace is like a treasure trove for kids' toys. We've had a few great things on there that have hardly been played with. Books, play kitchens, all things like that you can get on there. And charity shops as well. I think a lot of people are donating toys before Christmas. So if you are struggling and you are worried about Christmas, remember there's other options and you don't have to go overboard, and your kids just want to spend time with you. So take that pressure off. Finally, to finish on a quote I wrote: "You hear me calling for you in the middle of the night. You look at your phone and it's 3:38 a.m. I've only been down for 30 minutes. You lie there looking up at the ceiling, questioning where you're going to find the strength from to lift yourself from the bed. But you do. Mama's here, you whisper as we rock on our favourite chair. I'm instantly soothed, and you begin to feed me. Tears silently stream down your cheeks. You've had no more than 20 minutes solid sleep tonight, and you feel like you're crumbling. Your head bobs as you fight the sleep you so desperately need. You're feeling so many emotions in this moment as you just try to stay awake. You realise how strong you are as you hold me. You see just how much I've grown in 6 weeks. My toes press against the ends of the romper that was hanging off me not so long ago. My plump, rosy cheeks suckling. My strong hand that grips your finger, all thriving because of you. You're giving everything and it's hard, but this time will soon pass, Mama. Things will get easier, and one day you'll blink and I'll be grown." Thank you all for listening this evening, and thanks for being here as always. If you have any thoughts on anything I've discussed tonight, always send your emails in, thenightfeedpodcast@gmail.com. And if you could also remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review, that would really help. And I wish you all a restful, peaceful night ahead. Good night.